Hey y'all, it's Lindsay. I have spent the past 15 minutes cleaning up my kitchen back here. It is already dark outside, so my lighting is atrocious, but as I was cleaning my dishes, my brain was a-turnin', and I was thinking about the German chocolate pie my mom made for Thanksgiving. It's one of her signature pies. It's one of my favorite pies, but I chose not to partake of it this year because I didn't want to have all the inflammation riddled into my body. So I was thinking that through right over here at the dish zone, and I decided, what if I could make something similar? I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can't. So anyway, all of that to say, I decided I'm going to attempt to make some kind of a chocolate silk pie. My goal is to make it more Psmf friendly. We'll see how that goes. My goal is to make it dairy free. Again, we'll see how it goes. This is pure experimentation. I have no idea what's going to happen. It's an adventure in cooking, and I hope you're ready. Before we get started making a big mess in my kitchen after having just cleaned it all up, I would like to thank all of you subscribers who are returning. I appreciate you being here. If you are a newer subscriber, welcome. I hope that you poke around and find lots of content that intrigues you. And if you are not a subscriber at all and you're just hanging out watching the crazy show, I appreciate you being here as well. If you'd like to subscribe, I would love for you to be here. But if you don't want to, I fully respect your right to choose. I'm gonna go ahead and get you set up here. Now it's time to figure out, will I knock it out of the park or do I knock it into the trash?
First things first, let's get the oven preheating to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, pie crust time. I'm gonna take 60 grams of my egg white protein powder into my KitchenAid bowl. And then I will add in 6 ounces or 3/4 of a cup of water. I'm also going to add 1 teaspoon or 3 grams of cream of tartar and about 24 grams or 2 tablespoons of allulose into this mixture. And I'm also going to pour in probably, I don't know, 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to use my whisk attachment for my KitchenAid, plug her in, and I'm going to turn this on to the highest speed. I do use my splatter guard because this version does splatter really badly for me, and it does take my machine about 10 minutes to make it into stiff peaks. And as you saw, I did spray my pie plate so that it will not stick and it's ready to go. All right, stiff peaks have been reached, so I'm adding in 5 grams of this whole egg dried powder, and that's about 2 teaspoons. And then I added in about 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla just for some extra flavoring and let that whip for about another 7 to 10 seconds. And you can see that my meringue is very lovely here. After scraping down the sides, I'm going to put about half of this mixture into my pie plate, and my goal is to try to make an even layer all the way around the edges of the pie plate and sort of get an even thickness for the whole crust. This does take me a few minutes. I don't know if it would be easier if I were to use one of my piping bags and just pipe around as opposed to trying to scoop and smooth, but I went with the scoop and smooth method this go around. Into the oven for the pie crust, and I plan to set this timer for 20 minutes and check on it when it's done. While the crust is baking, we will start the filling. I'm going to crack 10 eggs and separate the yolks from the whites. This will yield me about 1.5 cups of egg whites once I'm all said and done with this. I plan to use the egg yolks to make something like custard or eggnog or something to that effect. Don't worry about the eggshells on the counter. I will be using some all-purpose spray to clean my counters whenever I'm all done with this. I'm going to scramble up these egg whites until they are scrambled but still a little bit wet. We call those slobbery eggs here in my house, and it will take a while. I do have it on a very low heat so that I don't scorch the bottoms of these. My goal is to make sure that all of the curd in the egg whites is very, very soft and there's no crunchy, crispy bits that will create an unpleasant texture. I really love this silicone fork I am using here in my skillet. I did spray a little bit of olive oil spray at the bottom of my skillet, with this being a stainless steel pan and a zero fat food, the likelihood of sticking is pretty great, and so I'm just trying to mitigate that as best as I possibly can. As these get really close to the end of cooking, I will turn the heat off and take them off the heat to let them finish up that last little bit of cooking, and I'm going to let these sit until I'm ready for my next step. The timer on the oven is about to go off, and my pie crust is looking lovely and golden brown. I do have another pan in there with the extra batter that I turned into bread pudding, but for right now, this crust is looking amazing. It is fully cooked, and I'm going to let this cool for a few minutes. Moving back to our filling, I am going to bloom 1 tablespoon of gelatin in half a cup of cool water. This is going to set to the side until I'm ready for that. I'm going to scoop all of my egg whites into my blender here. And then I'm going to start adding a myriad of ingredients. We're going to start with 3/4 of a cup of almond milk, or 6 ounces. And then I'm going to do 1/2 cup of my homemade sweet blend. This is an erythritol and stevia powder blend. Next up, I have some sunflower lecithin. This is going to be 1 teaspoon of sunflower lecithin and about between 1/8 and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm also going to add 1/8 teaspoon of stevia powder and 1 tablespoon of vanilla. Next up is 1/3 cup of cocoa powder, unsweetened cocoa powder, and 1/4 cup of my beef collagen. I'm going to go ahead and let this blend up for just a few seconds. I do like to pulse and then use a silicone spatula to scrape down my sides. With all these powders, I want to make sure everything gets very well incorporated, and doing this little extra step does help me to get a more smooth consistency. Things look pretty awesome right here, so I'm going to go ahead and scrape down my sides once again. And the next step is to warm up my gelatin in the microwave. I want it to be fully dissolved before I add it to the rest of my filling. Now that it is dissolved, I'm going to carefully add it to my blender while my blender is running on medium. I do have a kitchen cloth here covering the opening, so as I can catch the mess, you can see it there. This is kind of a messy process, but it is well worth it. Now I'm going to give it a little taste test. I'm liking the way it is so far. Scrape down the pitcher on my blender here, and then I'm going to go ahead and fill my cooled down pie crust. I'm going to let this pie set up in the fridge overnight, and we will check it tomorrow.
I'm back. It's the next day. How's it going? Here's my pie. I'm so excited for this. I let this set up in the refrigerator for all night long. It probably could have been removed after about 4 hours, maybe even less, I'm unsure, but it is good to go now, and I'm ready to taste test this sucker, so we're gonna figure it out. Okay. This appears to be somewhat attached around the rim. I'm going to attempt to carefully remove the seal here between crust and pie pan. Okay. You can look up.
On what?
The computer.
Well, you can't remove the panel.
Down at the bottom you can switch the user.
All it says is cancel.
Hit cancel and switch the user. Okay, my crust got a little bit ripped from cutting. Let's see if I can't get in there. So it did tear up a little bit down here, but that will probably not affect the taste if we're just calling it like it is. Also, because of all of that gelatin, a full tablespoon of gelatin gave me this really lovely like jiggler texture. If you don't care for that, I would definitely use a lot less gelatin, maybe only 1 teaspoon for this size of a pie. I need a fork. Here we go. I'm excited about this. I really like that Jello jiggler texture, or if you've ever done like chocolate pudding jigglers, I think that's what this will wind up being like. And let's see here, we've got a little bit of pie crust, a little bit of pie, if it would stop focusing on me, and there we go. So let us find out if this tastes any good. Yes. It's good. The crust is chewy, which is not a typical pie crust. You usually think of pie crust as being flaky, but it's not so dry that it feels awkward in my mouth. So that's good. The filling does separate from the crust, so it didn't really like meld well with the crust, but it does seem to fork, you know, cut a bite pretty easily and stay together for that process. And the mouthfeel is very creamy, even though there's no cream in this. This is very low fat. I need to actually go calculate up the macros on this one to see just how much fat is in this, because cocoa powder does have fat to it. And then also that whole egg powder had fat in it as well. So, yeah, I am not hating this. Okay, the outer edge of the crust, a lot more difficult to actually cut, but I did it. I'm gonna go finish this. I loved that pie, 100%. My husband is not as fond of that jiggler texture, that gel, full-blown gelatin texture, so this is probably not going to be his favorite. I think if I reduced my gelatin down to about 1 teaspoon instead of the full tablespoon, that might produce a much more pleasing texture for his preferences. I did go ahead and add up my fat. I didn't sort out protein. I didn't sort out total carbs or any of that mess. I was just really curious about the fat for some reason. You know, your brain gets locked into an idea, so you just go with it. For the whole egg powder in the crust, there was less than 2 grams of fat, and that's an approximation. And in the actual chocolate filling layer, there were less than 2 grams of fat in the sunflower lecithin and less than 3 grams of fat in the cocoa powder. So we're looking at a total of about 8 grams or less for the whole pie. And if you slice it into 8 slices, that gives you approximately 1 gram of fat per slice of the pie, which I feel like is pretty top notch. Sunflower lecithin is a specialty ingredient. What else is specialty? Most people have lots of these things. The sunflower lecithin, though, that really adds to the texture and the creamy mouthfeel that you get with the filling on this pie. So I recommend getting it if you don't already have it. You can definitely try it without. Your mileage may vary. Hey, as I was going through editing this video, I decided that I really did want to know how much protein was in a slice of this pie. So I went through and I added it all up, and what I have come up with, based on the fact that I did not use the full recipe of that Psmf bread in the pie crust, you saw I had it divided out into those 2 pans. I used about 60%, give or take, of the Psmf bread recipe. I got 8 slices of pie. I told you there was approximately 1 gram of fat per slice, and per slice, with 8 slices in the pie, focus, Lindsay. There are approximately 8 grams of complete protein and approximately 7 grams of incomplete protein Like I said, that's all per slice. So a total of 15 grams of protein per slice. Now, the collagen and gelatin combination is the incomplete protein. I believe those two do not have tryptophan, and there are 2 other essential amino acids that they are low in, therefore it's not sufficient for a complete amino acid profile. The 8 grams of protein are from the egg whites in the pudding portion of the pie and the egg white bread for the crust. Yeah, I don't know what else I have to say about this other than I'm excited about it. It's dairy free. It is really low fat. I think I'm down with this kind of a dessert. So I appreciate you watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.